joined by my old friend, although he's not so old. Tony Sheridan is Social Media and Digital Content Officer with the University of Limerick. You might recognise him from my Public Sector Digital Marketing Summit stage and being an all-round great public sector marketer and award winner. Tony, you're very welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me in this unusual format. It's fun. I'm looking forward to having a chat with you. I did prefer being on stage in the Helix, but look, we'll make do today.
I'll get you back on the stage again. Don't worry, there'll be plenty of case studies to be learned from this pandemic crisis, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So listen, let me just tell people, you've been in your role since 2016 and you came from a background managing student support initiatives in the higher ed sector. A really savvy social media and digital content manager. You've won awards, and actually you've won Best Snapchat in Ireland at the Irish Social Media Awards 2018 and Best Public Sector Instagram in Ireland in 2019. So these skills will stand to you well during this pandemic crisis. Tell us, how has the University of Limerick been adapting to COVID-19?
Well, I think we've been adapting well. It's been hard. And certainly you touched on something there about skills. This last few weeks, I suppose the last 3 weeks since the university closed 3 weeks ago, but even the 3 weeks before that, the university and any institution, public sector or otherwise, that had experienced comms people is lucky, because can you imagine being someone 2 weeks or 3 weeks into your job and something like this happening? I'm glad I wasn't in that situation. But if you take my role, just to give people a perspective, on both marketing and communication. So university social media can be a tool to reach out to prospective students, their parents, career guidance teachers, and influence. And then also there are a communications tool with a campus, certainly UL's best campus in Ireland, 2 years running. It's an amenity, it's a public amenity, it's got a gym, a concert hall. So there's a lot of stakeholders that you're communicating with. That changed slightly in terms of orientation overnight. So we moved into, like a lot of people, crisis communication mode. So that was the first thing. Stop marketing, stop talking about anything that's not COVID-19, because you don't want to dilute that message. Interestingly, in terms of internal communications, like direct communications to our students, we don't tend to use social media for that purpose. We capture the student experience, we highlight it, we showcase it to the public, but our social media is not designed to be a university talks to students. We use email for that. The university talks to students. But the beauty and benefit of having really established social media accounts like we have, I don't know, we're touching about 400,000 followers across the accounts. A lot of hard work and effort, as you would know, goes into building that type of followers. But if we only had email going direct to those students, who we're missing out on is the public, who wanted to know, is the campus still open? The parents of those students, the grandparents of those students, the aunties, uncles. So having our established social media account allowed us to put our COVID-19 related updates out into the public. People could comment. And another change that we made at that point in time was we don't use our social media as a questions and answers function, right? We put relevant information on the website and we point towards there, because there's just me. You know, we have a wonderful small team, but the other people on the team, while they can absolutely help out and the skills that transfer, I'm the social media officer and digital content. So I wouldn't have time to one-to-one answer every single query that was coming in throughout the years. So we don't do that. We just point towards the website. In this instance, we switched that. We said, okay, questions are coming in. I'm going to respond to absolutely every single person, even if it's just a direct to our FAQ page. But in a time of crisis, people are stressed, they're worried. Sometimes they're pretty mean to Twitter accounts as well and ratty, but we understand that, we get that. It's stress, you know, and as a university trying to give good customer service, if you want to call it, or stakeholder service, we switched from not replying to every single one of them. And we tried to put people's minds at ease. We tried to tell them clearly what was happening, because you look at the first maybe 10 days, we're not closing yet. We don't believe, and then it was, whoop, okay, we're closing, we're doing this. Then it was students who are abroad, come home, so the messages, there was a lot of messages going out. That's why I felt it was important to switch that. And this was all being kind of played by ear as well. It was like we were meeting every single morning, every midday. At the end of work, the 5 o'clock, work went on long beyond 5 o'clock for weeks and weeks. It's kind of calming down a little bit now. But yeah, we switched our focus to be entirely focused on getting the message to our stakeholders as clearly as possible. And social media, digital content, changing up our web interface allowed us to do that. Look, I'm very proud of the team that I work on and how we've responded to this. Hasn't been perfect, but we've tried our best. We've worked really hard, and I think it's been appreciated by the staff, students, and other stakeholders as well, which is great.
That is quite a noble pivot to redirect Q&As to your website, to turn that around 360 degrees in a crisis situation. I think a lot of people are going to be listening and watching this and going, I wonder if this is a strategy that we should deploy, because I'm not sure it's one that organizations in public sector or government are brave enough to do, especially with small teams. But you've just proved that in crisis mode, maybe you need to do what you don't normally do. How then have your stakeholders and citizens responded to that sort of citizen engagement that you're providing now?
Yeah, so I suppose the interesting thing about that, and the difficult thing, was there are elements of my role that you can outsource. So I have a team of student social media officers that create content and stuff. And when I realized that, or when we made the decision, we thought it was the right call to respond to absolutely every Facebook message, LinkedIn message, comments, everything. We also realized that we couldn't outsource that outside of the team. It had to be me. So that was a difficult call to make, because we couldn't risk the message not being clear or misinformation happening. So, but as you pointed out, I do think that it was necessary at that point. And it was draining, it was exhausting, but it was never going to last forever. Because at a certain point, the questions dissipate. The situation is still ongoing globally, but the university is now fully online. Exams and assessments will be online at the end of the semester. There are still questions, and we are updating our FAQ daily, but the volume has decreased massively. So for a short term, I would encourage other people to consider that as part of their crisis communication strategy. Of course, the best thing you could do is have a bigger team and have loads of spare people and have loads of expertise. But unfortunately, I think even beyond this pandemic, when things return to normal, one of the normalities that we'll return to is having a beyond capacity comms teams. And you know what? Some of us love thriving in that kind of chaos. Particularly a difficult task or a draining task is fine with me when you're serving the greater good here. Getting good communications. To point to a risk, so if you consider there's a reward there, which is serving your community well. Reward's maybe not the right word in this context, but you know what I mean there. The risk, however, I'll exemplify in this example. I went for lunch, and by going for lunch, I went to get some food, and I came back, and there was a parent who had asked a question privately on our Facebook page. And within 20 minutes, she hadn't got an answer. She posted publicly on her Facebook page. She commented on 3 of our Facebook posts, and she tweeted us. I got back to her. I said, hi, whatever her name was. I started conversing with her, and within 2 minutes, she had calmed down. She said, I just needed to talk to somebody. I needed to know what was happening. The situation hadn't changed from the previous information she had seen online, but she just needed to connect to somebody. And that's not her fault that she had a child that she was worried about. That's a natural reaction. But if we had have left that completely and not responded to that woman and left her for days or not responded to her at all, where do we sit in terms of the customer service we're providing? Where does that sit if you want to look at it in the cold light of PR or from a marketing point of view? That's not good, in terms of how your institution is perceived. So I think that's really, really important to consider. as part of your strategy, definitely.
So you've given me a really good example, and all of us, in fact, of one of the concepts that I teach is, don't outsource your story. The best people to tell your story are yourselves. And, right now, the person who has the answers needs to be on the front line. We're watching our healthcare frontline workers play a blinder, and they will be for a long time to come. But when it comes to other parts of the public service, we really need the answers coming from source, and the trusted source. So total respect for taking that on.
And if you consider that, Joanne, a very important element of that for our comms team. So if I take our corporate communications officer, Andrew Carey, he was working on the FAQs, but a comms team can't create the answers to FAQs. We needed to go to the different divisions and departments. So having our institutional knowledge and having our institutional links and having good working relationships and networks already established within that group was vital. We knew who to go to for each of those answers. The comms team is about communicating the answers, but we can't create, we can create the wording, but we don't make the decisions around how exams are going to happen. So that was really important. And I do think that these types of crises shine a light on what good comms can do and how important it is. But if you didn't have that established base, you were in trouble, going into something like this. And there would be kind of more negative repercussions,
And we were talking before we started recording here that there is no playbook for crisis comms during a global pandemic that affects your nation state. You're effectively writing it, Tony, for you and your team, for your organization and for higher ed. What have you found? Let's talk about channels and tactics. Yeah. How have the various channels and social networks been helpful to you? Anything that you've noticed in particular?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question, because while from the outside looking in, sometimes people look at the University of Limerick's social media that I run, and our goal is to stand out from the crowd, to be different, and that can look like, whoa, look what they just did there. But I always explain to people, that's a strategy. That's a complete strategy. Nothing is not considered in lots of different angles and how it's perceived. It's all there to chain react in some sort of way, in a way that suits our kind of key strategic objectives and our brand identity as young and bold and dynamic. So I have a very strong opinion as to what content goes on what channels and what works and how we use them. And I'm very much a gatekeeper. We're an institution of 16,500 students with 1,800 full-time staff and about 1,000 more affiliates and part-time staff. So I get sent a lot of stuff like, please put this on Facebook. No, that's not going on Facebook, or that's not going anywhere on social media, but that should be X, right? And there's always a place for that content, but I know what works where. With this, I had to just trial and error again, So first move for me was splattergun. Okay, we've got an alert, it's going everywhere, right? Now, we put it on Snapchat, we put it on LinkedIn, we put it on Facebook, we put it on Twitter, and we did that for the first two. And then I learned from that. And I said, okay, well, LinkedIn, if we understand how LinkedIn works, a lot of people, the shelf life of a LinkedIn post is over about a week. So it's not a great place to put an urgent alert. So by the time some people were seeing the first alert, you'd probably put out two more. And that information might be out of date. So we realized quite quickly, particularly for our community alerts, LinkedIn wasn't the place for it. Because most of our connections on LinkedIn are our alumni who are across the world. So the closure of the campus or what's happening with exams, not really relevant to that audience. So we learned that. Twitter, as we know, is what's happening now, right? It was a brilliant place because journalists could see what we were doing, the staff, the students, anyone could get the most up to date. But a lot of our students aren't on Twitter. They're on Snapchat and Instagram. So what we were doing was we had the landing page, which was always going to have the most up-to-date update. And we put a banner across our website. So the first thing you're going to see is a big yellow banner that's going to our dedicated COVID-19 page with all the previous updates below it, useful documents here. We set it up kind of overnight. It was really good, and we knew that we could keep adding to it. On Instagram, thankfully, we are verified and have over 10,000 followers, or 20,000 followers, that we could do swipe ups to direct to that. So it was a matter of me just making graphics that pulled the most important piece of our update, because some of them aren't going to click and read the rest of it. What's the most important thing? We'll put that there with your swipe up. And I used some animated graphics tools, used Canva animated, made some stock graphics that I could edit and reuse, you know, change the copy. And I could use something similar on Snapchat. We have a piece of software called Mishguru, which is a story analytic and management software coming out of New York. I mean, we had won Best Snapchat and Best Instagram in Ireland. We have a lot of followers there. That software really helped me, so I could create stuff on my desktop, use this software to get it straight and quickly over to those platforms. Facebook, which we've all seen our organic reach decline on Facebook. It's become less. I'm not a big fan of it. You know, there's still value in it, but it became really important again because it's a place where every parent's going to tag their kid. You know, Johnny, have you seen this update? And it was really useful to be able to pin our most recent update to the top of the page every day or every second day as it went on. So we left TikTok alone. We have a really good TikTok account, but it doesn't allow for links. It doesn't allow for swipe ups. And generally, we've kept that to be purely fun. And I thought about it. It doesn't suit graphics, like, you know, actual animated graphics. It's all video. And now as things relax, I'm looking at doing something on TikTok, but it will be very much in the line of light relief to this global anxiety-inducing situation for our students and prospective students. But so, yeah, it wasn't like this hit and I was like, I know exactly what to do. It was the opposite. But my strategy was simple. You put it everywhere at first, you see how that goes, you monitor, you learn, you reflect. Like you should do in general all the time with your content. But in this case, instead of over months and doing it's squeezed into days and hours, and you just have to look at how things are performing. But certainly having very established social media accounts already, having ones that were really high, like, I mean, we're industry leaders in higher ed in terms of engagement. That really helped that we had that engaged audience who could see our message and spread it and get it out there quickly.
So we know that your daily working life has changed, but also you're there in your living room and your two colleagues are nestled away working in their bedrooms. How are you coping 3 weeks in? And we don't know how long this is going to go on, but we anticipate it's going to be protracted. How are you coping mentally and physically?
I found it hard. I'm doing a postgrad online on top of work. So work's hours have extended long beyond the usual working days, which were long enough already. And it has been stressful and draining. And as I kind of referenced, sometimes people, when they're stressed, they can, you know, a good place for them to lash out is a Twitter account. So getting hammered, you know, it can be tough. But also I've been quite glad to be so busy. I've been glad to be in a position where I feel like we have a vital role in this, which is communication. I think communication from the government, communication from the HSE, communication of key messages has been so vital. So I really felt like, you know, I'm not a frontline worker. I'm not a nurse in a hospital. You know, I have so much admiration and respect for everyone that's doing that. But, you know, being busy when I felt like we were doing something, you know, that contributed here, I didn't mind it, and that's, you know, it's kept me busy. And I've also weirdly felt not that much difference. You know, I have the exact same desk setup as I had in my office, but spending long hours at this desk instead of the one in my office. So it hasn't changed that much. I'm going to the pub less. You know, I'm dreaming of.
You meant to say you're not going at all, Tony.
Yeah, well, zero, but which is less than previous. I'm dreaming of pints of Guinness, but no, it's been fine, and it's helped us bring on stream some of the things that we had previously talked about. So we are using kind of management tools and online management tools really effectively now, because we had to just get used to it, you know. So I think there's been great learnings in it, and efficiencies for our team. the team bonding. I have a wonderful team. We have a web team, a marketing team, and a comms team. And I kind of, as social media and digital content officer, I'm part of each of the teams. So, but as a unit, as a division, we have a really close bond, and we have our WhatsApp group, and we have our Slack channel, and we're having our Zoom Thursday morning coffees, which we normally have in the university in one of the cafes, and we have it, 16 faces on screen, and we can all catch up. And except now there's kids and dogs and cats coming in, but yeah, those connections and having very strong communication with your team has been vital for me to not feel, I don't feel isolated. I feel very connected to what's going on. But those relationships were established prior to this. We've just adapted really quickly and made sure that we've maintained those connections. And I think being kept busy, having good connections, and feeling like I'm contributing to this big community, which is the University of Limerick community, and doing the best I can, it's keeping me going. And yeah, it looks like we will be doing this for a while yet.
Tony, it's always refreshing to have a social media conversation with you. Congratulations on what you've achieved so far. As I said, you're writing the playbook as you do it, and so there's a very nice case study in it for the summit stage whenever we get back to normal, probably in 2021. But yeah, for now, we're going to allow people to access your insights as you spoke so freely. We'll talk again soon. Stay safe and stay at home.
Same to you, Joanne. Thanks for having me.